Tommy Tuberville told Donald Trump he's going to have a hard time if we don't play football and other things. And all that's coming up after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You got to help me with that corner shit.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college football related, sports related. We have a good time. Today, I want to talk about the president and the Alabama Senate race between former Auburn head coach, former Cincinnati head coach, former Texas Tech head coach, Tommy Tuberville, and former Attorney General Jeff Sessions, which is of national significance and import. But more than that, it's got a lot to do with football because we're talking about a football coach and we're talking about a president who visited a college football game during the regular season and got a standing ovation. This was at Tuscaloosa. This was at Bryant-Denny, where Alabama's $1 million band turned to play its Veterans Day tribute to him. And he's beloved there, right? But Tommy Tuberville said he went on Air Force One last Wednesday and said this, according to AL.com, to President Trump, said, I was on Air Force One with him the other day. He said, hey, coach, how am I doing in Alabama? I said, Mr. President, you're doing great. Only thing is, if we don't play football, you'll have a hard time. Of course, Tuberville is an out Trump supporter, says we need to get him reelected, those sorts of things, yada, 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 politics, politics, politics. And then there's this part where I find it interesting that Alabama fans are going to have to vote for an Auburn head coach if they want to vote along what I think their politics might be if they're Republican, right? Because we're talking about a Republican primary, and they're going to fit that person, whether it be Jeff Sessions or Tommy Tuberville, who's up for election today, or the primaries today, is going to go toward the Senate election in November 3rd against Doug Jones, who's of the Democratic Party and black. So the part of this that I found to be the most fun and interesting is, of course, the president's never been shy about talking about how much he likes Alabama, but even this gets a crack from you, I'm sure. Of Tommy Tuberville, he said in a conference call last night, really successful coach, beat Alabama like 6 times in a row, but we won't even mention that. As he said, because of that, maybe we got him Lou Saban, and he's great, Lou Saban. What a great job he's done. So Trump clearly mixed up Nick Saban with Lou Saban, who's been dead for 10 years, and wasn't really a remarkable coach. Only thing he really did was recruit Jim Kelly to Miami and kind of set the table for what Schnellenberger was going to be able to do at the U. But it got better for me from there because Tommy Tuberville drops the Tommy in his name for Coach Tuberville in his campaign materials. And at one point, yeah, he was really great at Auburn and beat Alabama 7 out of 10 times in the Iron Bowl. But there was one point in which Bobby Langham went to Bobby Petrino after like a 3-game skid, said, hey, do you want to be the head coach at Auburn? And he's like, didn't Tuberville just go like undefeated and get shafted out of playing for the 2004 national championship? I asked you, do you want the job or not? Because I'm not really interested in this guy anymore. And beating Alabama so frequently and taunting them about it, I thought might be a hang-up for Alabama fans, but apparently they're right there because we're talking about back in March when they did this thing, when there were like 7 candidates, you're talking about a 12,000 vote margin where one candidate got 33% of the vote and another candidate got 32% of the vote, and that's why we're in this runoff and trying to figure out which one of these guys is going to be able to represent for their party in the Alabama Senate race in November. So again, Tuberville is middling at best as a football coach, right? Because from 99 to 2008, he was head coach at Auburn, but he's also the first coach to lose to Vanderbilt at Auburn in 5 decades. Like, he's got that. He also had a 4-8 stop at Cincinnati in 2016, which was his last time as a head coach. And since then, he's basically been running for Senate for about 500 days in Alabama, which is really trying to win back that seat for a number of reasons, because that seat could be the difference between a a Democratic majority and a not. But I found this to be the most fun because you got Donald Trump making an old man mistake. I'm sure that there's lots of people that confuse Barry Bonds and Bobby Bonds and Ken Griffey Jr. with Ken Griffey Sr. It's fun to me, right? Because this is not necessarily the kind of mistake that I would expect a college football fan to make, but I also acknowledge that it slips up. I slip up from time to time on this channel, and some of y'all call me out on it, but I needed to talk about this because Tuberville is running on being a football coach and being in lockstep with Trump. The reason that Jeff Sessions is interesting here is because he was in lockstep with Trump. He recused himself at the start of an investigation into voter tampering, which, Robert Mueller led, and Trump was later acquitted. But since then, Trump has been on scorched earth trail, just flaming against Jeff Sessions, which I thought was going to be interesting because, you would expect some sort of loyalty there, but apparently not. Meanwhile, Tommy Tuberville is on Air Force One just a week ago, and we're in this runoff today where I'm going to get to see whether or not Bama fans, of which there are more than Auburn fans, are really going to ride for Tommy Tuberville over a dude who had tremendous name recognition, still has tremendous name recognition, and ran unopposed in 2014. It also shows you what the shifting dynamics in the pandemic have done for us, because we're talking about the elections are going to go on, man. And because the elections are going to go on, I'm interested to see how many people go out and vote, because we also had this really interesting part where like 65,000 mail-in ballots have been rejected for one reason or another. And we're still trying to talk about whether or not we get football, right? So by promising football, you would think Tommy Tuberville saying we got to have football, that this is going to go well for the president if we play. And right now, all indications are that we are going to play, even though I'm not sure that we should. I don't think that we should, actually, even with the conference 10-game slate, but that's another segment. I know that doing this kind of a segment is also right there in line, because we're talking politics, but we're also talking football, because if Nick Saban was running for Senate, landslide, win. But Nick Saban is apolitical, right? For the most part, he sides with his players, and his players lead his politics. They put out a Black Lives Matter video like 2 weeks ago in Alabama, but we also had a mayor who decided to resign over Alabama football, putting out a video in support of Black Lives. What? But that's where we are with this, and I thought that this was an interesting topic to talk about today, because the Alabama primary is today, and because football is fun, and this is just one other way in which football is weirdly bizarre and weirdly influential in politics. But if we go back in history, we see football has been a large part of politics for some time, even in the state of Oklahoma, where George Lynn Cross wanted to build a football program, build a university that the football program could be proud of. And Bud Wilkinson launched into a political campaign right off of winning at OU. It matters, right? So football is all throughout all of this, even today when we're not playing any football and it's traditionally preseason July. All right, that's it for me. Deuces.